Before we dive in, we are so excited to announce that we just hit 100,000 episode streams on There's Just Something About Kansas City. And to celebrate, we're hosting a Kansas City giveaway with great stuff from our friends from Boulevard, Made in KC, and the Quarter Life Club, and many, many others. There are just a few days left, so head over to our Instagram and you can find all the details in our recent post. And as always, thanks so much for listening.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is brought to you by the generosity of our friends with the Haverty family, the Illig family, the Kearney Warnell Foundation, UMB Bank trustee, the Sherman family, the Cockrell family, Kansas City Orthopedic Institute, Don and Mary Doherty, and the Bergman family. Thank you.
Welcome once again to another episode of There's Just Something About Kansas City. I am your host, Frank Bohl. We talk about the people, places, and things that make this such a great place to live. Sitting across from me, man, known this guy since he got here in Kansas City when they were the Kansas City Wizards and they eventually became Sporting KC. He was one of their top draft choices. One of their greatest players, played for the men's national team, Graham Zusi. Graham, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Good to see you. It's been a little bit.
It's been a little bit of time. Absolutely right. This is great. But now we are less than a year away from the World Cup, and you are the community ambassador for NBKC. My daughter happens to work for NBKC, believe it or not.
I've heard that.
And so she works there, and you are their community ambassador for the 2026 World Cup. This has to be an incredibly exciting time for you. I won't even say bittersweet because you had a terrific career in soccer, okay? And then this is just maybe the cherry on top with the fact that it's going to be in the United States and we are going to host 6 games here in Kansas City, which it has to be amazing for you to think about where we've come in soccer in this country.
Yes, it is a huge deal. I'm not sure everyone understands how big a deal it is yet, but I'm so excited to be working with NBKC. It was kind of a lucky encounter I had with them. Back in my sporting days, had some crossover with the jersey sponsor, a guy named Tom Butch, and now he does some consulting for NBKC. They got in contact with him, and my name came up that I might be a good ambassador for the program leading up to the World Cup. And Tom reached out, and I jumped on it right away. Exciting things to come in the next year or so.
Yeah, right. We'll talk about that, a little bit of your experience with the World Cup in Brazil.
Yep.
You and Matt Bees are on the same team, and you and Matt Bees are being from here, or, working with Sporting KC and the Wizards and living together for a while. No, I got a couple stories. So, but let's go way back.
Sure.
Longwood, Florida.
Yep.
And you went to Brantley High School in Longwood, and you grew up in a soccer family. Your dad was your coach. You had 3 siblings, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody played soccer, and your dad was your coach, right?
My dad was my coach until kind of I made that little bit of a step towards competitive soccer, but he was almost all of our coaches at some point. But yeah, 3 siblings, all of us played collegiately, and we weren't just a soccer family. My dad didn't really know anything about the sport. He probably drew the short straw to be the coach of the kiddos team, but no, we all just fell in love with it. I played soccer, baseball, basketball, tennis, lacrosse, all the way up through high school, and soccer was the sport that kind of took precedent. It was like, all right, if there was conflict, soccer was always going to win.
That's the way you felt about it.
That's the way I felt about it.
Right,
for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, Dad was more of like he taught the love of the game, and he was learning just along the way like we were.
Yeah, which I think is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Well, what did he do for a living?
So he's an engineer, environmental engineer. He does a lot of like water treatment, utility work.
Yeah. And I know your dad's David, your mom's Shirley.
Yep.
And she's from Pittsburgh.
Shirley's
she's
from
not
Pittsburgh.
too far from where I was born and raised.
Yeah.
Shirley's in Mount Lebanon. Yeah.
So that side of the family was very, very much so the sport side of the family. She's one of 5, and her brothers were incredible athletes. She is as well, actually, to be honest. But yeah, we would travel up to Pittsburgh to visit the grandparents at least once a year. Catch the Steelers, catch the Penguins.
Sure.
Man, we're still huge Pittsburgh fans.
Yeah.
In the
I won't
Zusi
tell the
household.
Chiefs any of that.
I've become very much a Chiefs fan as well.
I know you have.
Out of necessity. For sure.
Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about, before we move on to strictly, to talk a little bit about your brother Michael.
Yep.
Where did he end up playing collegiately, and what's he doing now?
So Mike went up to Liberty University out of high school, played a year or two for that school, and then he got the itch to do the abroad thing, and he ended up doing a year in Australia. On his way home from Australia, I guess it's kind of customary for those study abroad kids to stop in Hawaii. It's kind of like an easy pit stop.
Oh, I see. I'm going to stop in Hawaii.
So he was going to stay there for like a weekend. 3 years later, he's still in Hawaii. He was probably living on a tent on the beach for a while.
Sure.
Worked on like whale watching boats and was just living the dream out there. Eventually made it back kind of mainland area and went back to school and went to nursing school. Did that for years and years and years. He's still in the hospital environment, but kind of almost runs the hospital he's at now.
Where is he?
He's in Utah.
Utah.
Yeah, out in
Okay.
Utah.
Oh.
I was just out
He's
there
still
last
living
week.
the dream, yeah.
He is, yeah. Him, myself, and my dad just did a boys' backpacking trip out there last week.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the places you've been and some of the things you've done, which is incredible. Even your career is incredible enough, some of the other things. And then your two sisters, Megan and Mariah, right?
Mariah, yeah.
And so they both played collegiately as well?
They did, yeah.
Wow.
Megan played at Furman University.
Okay.
Had a great career there. She's insanely smart as well. Just straight A's all throughout high school, college, the whole gamut. She went to nursing school as well, so she's a nurse. Did a lot of the neonatal stuff, and now has a kid of her own, and she lives in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Yep.
And Mariah?
And then Mariah is a school teacher. She has 2 kiddos now, and she's living out in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
So we're kind of spread all over the place.
Yeah, right. Well, they're in perfect places for you, you know. That's the whole
Definitely.
thing. Okay, let's talk about high school. I know you said all these things about all the other sports you played, lacrosse, basketball, tennis, all the other things growing up. When did you, and I think that's great for kids. If you're listening to this, and you're listening to Graham Zusi and the things he's accomplished, he did not concentrate 365 days a year on soccer. You did other things. And I think when you do other things, you get to experience that, and then you can sort of eliminate things. Because like you said, you got to a point where if there was a conflict, it was soccer. That's, in your mind, you knew that's what I really want to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I struggle to see where the youth sports has gotten to where they've got you, like you said, it's 365 days a year.
And it's not just soccer.
No, it's
baseball,
not. Absolutely not.
Football, they're all doing the same thing. Yeah.
But I am a firm believer in just the cross-training aspect of sport. Lacrosse, it made me get stronger and beef up a little bit. I was a tiny kid growing up.
Yeah. And just start to take
tennis.
a physical beating a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Lacrosse.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, big time. Tennis, hand-eye coordination, basketball is similar, but basketball, like movement in tight spaces as well. Those other sports absolutely helped me in my soccer career and made me kind of the athlete I am today.
Yeah. What age do you remember it was going to be soccer only?
Honestly, it wasn't until college that I eliminated all other sports.
Okay, yeah. And I'm going to go back to your high school for 1 minute here.
Sure.
1 second. Okay, and I'm sure you know these people, and you were on their list, okay? Some of the famous alums from Lake Brantley High School, okay? I'm sure you can rip off a few names yourself,
You're
right?
going baseball first?
You could do wherever you want to go.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Who is the catcher? Played for the Red Sox.
Yeah, Jason Varitek. Yeah, Varitek.
He's probably the biggest, I would imagine.
Well, you're pretty big too. But they had Wendy Bruce, bronze medalist in gymnastics.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You have Chris DeMarco, golfer. He was the runner-up in the Masters. Then he had a nephew who was Pat DeMarco. He played in the NFL. Nick Franklin with the Angels. Hunter Kemper, who was the Olympian decathlete. They all went to the same high school, folks. Felipe Lopez, still playing MLB today. Steven Sinofsky. Do you know who Steven Sinofsky is?
I know the name.
You know
Probably because I saw it up on the
exactly.
the stadium.
Microsoft. He created Windows 7 and 8. He went to your high school. And maybe the most famous guy, okay, besides you, of course, Rob Thomas, the lead of Matchbox 20.
Oh, my
Went to
gosh,
Lake
yes.
Brantley High School. How could
That
you
is like
forget him?
That completely, I don't know how that's gone completely out of my mind. Yes, oh my
Yes,
gosh. Yeah.
right. You had some alumni there.
No wonder they played that song in high school so much. Like the morning announcements, Matchbox 20.
Yeah, right. It's absolutely. I think that's incredible. So the high school was very, very good. 2,800 kids too.
It's a big
high school.
Big
you
school.
never considered American football then, because you said you
No,
weren't that big, right?
it was. I was a small kid. I like kicking would be the only thing I went out there a couple of times. Just I was like, could I kick a field goal? And yeah, I was hitting some like 65, 70 yarders.
I'll bet. I'll bet.
But it was like a direct conflict with soccer.
Yeah.
And so I just never did.
Well, you could have played soccer scene and kicked on Friday night under the lights. You know what I mean? One of those deals.
Yeah. I don't know.
They'd have made a Hallmark movie out of it.
Would have allowed that, but
yeah, right, right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Anyway,
okay,
no, never football.
Yeah, so you go through high school, and you guys were very, very good. Okay,
We were
in high
solid,
school, yeah, really solid. And then comes to picking a college. How many offers did you have, and why Maryland over some of the other schools that were after you?
So I was. A lot of my offers and a lot of my attention was ACC. At that point, it was like the powerhouse conference.
Yeah,
at the
North
time.
Carolina,
Virginia, Duke, Maryland. Just in the past like 4 years, they had won the national championship every single year, kind of thing. And so I actually did a road trip with my parents, and we kind of went up the coast and stopped at a few of those schools, met with the coaches. I got offers at pretty much every single one of them, except for Virginia Tech, actually, bizarrely. But soccer didn't have a whole lot of scholarships to offer. I think they had a total of 9.
Yeah,
to spread around.
What people don't understand, it's a little bit like baseball, college baseball. They give you X amount of scholarships. But rarely is a kid there on a full scholarship, right?
Correct, yeah.
Somebody has a quarter, somebody has a half.
Exactly. So some of them were like, "Hey, we just don't have anything. We slide you a little bit here," but and I needed the scholarship money. It was just as simple as that. The way we were set up as a family, but so I ended up getting to Maryland, and they at the time were 4 consecutive Final Fours. Just a very strong school. Sasha Swarovski, very respected coach, and got there, and they happened to slide over the most scholarship money for me. And there was also the caveat that my grandparents lived in Maryland as well, or lived in Maryland at the time as well. So it's like, okay, you can go and get that home cooked meal every couple weekends, go do laundry at their place. So it was really nice to have them close as well.
It's nice for the homesick situation too. People don't realize, well, I guess if you go far enough away to school, you're in Florida and then you go all the way to Maryland. There's that first semester until you really get into it, and having somebody there is for sure. Support group is great.
But a kind of a funny story. I had, without telling Maryland and Sasha that I had pretty much made up my mind to go there. We were getting to the end of that road trip. I hop out of the car after being in the car for 20 plus hours. And the first thing Sasha says to me, he's like, "So what are you thinking about studying in?" And I was like, "Well, I'm really into architecture. I've been taking architecture classes in high school, all the AutoCAD stuff." And he literally goes, "Nope, choose something else." I was like, like a 17, 18-year-old kid.
Right.
Has his dreams of being an architect.
You're changing my life. You
was
are?
like, nope, choose something else.
It's not my decision.
It was like
anymore.
literally the first thing he said to me, and I was like, oh gosh, I was so taken aback by it. I almost thought he was joking, but it's the only school on campus that's open 24 hours a day because it just takes so much time for these kids. But that was just like a kind of a punch to the face. But ended up committing. He was smart. He kind of separated myself from my parents. He's like, oh yeah, Mom, Dad, go check out
that science building over there.
And then he brought me into the field house, and I walked out, and my parents could see the look on my face. They're like, "What did you do?" I was like, "I just committed to Maryland." So,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, and so then realize if you'd have gotten the architecture, you end up in Kansas City, which is the sports architecture capital of the world.
Totally.
Yeah. But instead you pick.
So I ended up being a criminal justice major. I was actually kind of going the business route, and I had to take some electives naturally, and I chose criminology as an elective, and I was like fascinated by it, mainly because the professors at Maryland were so incredible. I had ex-CIA professor, ex-FBI. The former head of the Secret Service was my professor, and it was just they made the classes super interactive. It wasn't just your reading out.
These guys are in the field.
They were in there, so they would quite literally create like crime scenes for us in the classroom, and we had to solve stuff and. Forensics class. It was quite.
Did you think if the soccer didn't work, would it have been FBI, CIA
I think
type
it quite
thing?
quite could have. Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, especially being. I mean, you're right around DC. And,
that's where it is.
Could have been.
Okay, but it wasn't.
It wasn't.
So you go to Maryland, terrific national championships, the whole thing, and you're getting to the end of your career in Maryland. When did you feel that? When did you start to think I could be a pro, I can make money at this, I can have a career in this sport?
Really, every step of my career, whether it was like going from high school to college to professional, I didn't realize it was possible until very, very late.
Until it happened.
Almost until it happened.
You almost didn't want to think.
Totally, absolutely. I get kind of so locked in with the here and now. That, which I think was a good thing for me, at least. It didn't allow me to overthink what was coming next. So I didn't think that it was a possibility until I got invited to the combine after my senior season.
Right. So you put the pressure on yourself to be in that moment, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the draft's coming. Now I think you probably know that you're going to get drafted, basically, right? This was the MLS Super Draft.
Yeah, I'd had a very strong end to my senior career. We won the national championship. I scored both the goals in the Final Four. I think I may have even gotten MVP of that tournament. But a strong ending to my college career. But I was still in class. So Maryland has this little mini semester in January, and that's when the draft happens. So I didn't go to the draft. I was actually in class when the draft was happening, and I found out where I was going from a text from my buddy, my college roommate.
Hey, guess what?
He's like, "Hey, you're going to Kansas
City." And the first thing you say is, "Where's Kansas City?"
Kansas City? What is it? I literally knew something about every other city in the league, except for Kansas City. But the silver lining to that was, at that time there was a guy who was playing for the Wizards. His name is Abe Thompson, who had gone to University of Maryland as well. I just missed him by 1 year, but he was legend of the school. Had a very solid MLS career as well. So I was like, at least I know someone. At least I've got a name and a face that I can reach out to and see what's up.
Did you expect to go higher? You went 23rd, which is
No.
pretty good. It was the second round, but you were the 23rd pick, right?
No, I think I always have this kind of mentality of I'm not this guy. I don't know. I think it's maybe a coping mechanism to think that I've never made it yet, where there's always room for improvement. I was stoked and super happy to go 23 and.
No matter where Kansas City was.
No, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It didn't matter, and the way MLS works, if you're drafted, it's essentially an invite to try out. You're not guaranteed anything. I didn't sign my first contract until I think a few days before the home opener game in Kansas City, and I happened to be starting that game as well.
Was that against Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah, Toronto. Let's say.
Yeah.
Okay, so you get drafted and you arrive here and you start working out. Your attitude was great because you never strutted in and thought, I'm going to be the greatest player in MLS history or whatever. I'm just going to go out here and I'm going to see what happens.
Sure.
Just like your entire career. Worked out pretty well. The team that drafted you was the KC Wizards, who were the KC Wiz, which is a disastrous name to begin with. But what do you remember about the first game?
It was an
Against
absolute
Toronto.
blur. I know we lost 3-2. I'm pretty sure, but it to me it seemed like it lasted 15 minutes, that game, and it was such a blur. Admittedly, I was a little bit just taken aback by the moment and in my first game, and it flew by. I couldn't tell you one thing about the game, how the goals happened or anything. Yeah.
Don't remember a thing, right?
Not a thing.
Yeah, right. And then, a billion games later, you know what I mean? And everything else that you've experienced. Okay, they changed their name in Sporting Kansas City. They became Sporting Kansas City. And we were all like, when they changed it to Sporting Kansas City, we here in Kansas City are going, oh, God, that's awful.
Yeah.
What is that? What is the deal? And I think they're trying to get themselves more aligned with European soccer, right? Isn't that the reason for these name changes and the names of all these teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think, MLS in general is trying to expand and get global attention. And, one of the goals of MLS is to become a top 10, top 5 league around the world. So I think with the name change, they're trying to get a little bit more global attention. Those Sportings, those FCs, football club.
Yeah, right.
We've adopted some of that language from the European League, which I understand the frustration by some of the American fan, but with the history of the global sport and how long it's been around, I understand that side of it as well.
Yeah. Plus, a lot of the MLS players, you included, would get the opportunity to go play there, and I think that had to be a big draw for you. For you guys to be able to be on one of those teams. You went to West Ham United, even though you're a Liverpool fan, right? So you
I did kind of grow up a Liverpool
right?
fan,
But you end up there 12 and 13. That had to be an incredible thrill.
That was incredible. Yeah, I was. So that was. I started having some success with the national team as well. Really working hard to make that 2014 World Cup team, and this opportunity to go train with West Ham popped up, and I was like all over it.
And I think also not only just going to Europe, but the fact that it was going to make you a better player and increase your likelihood of being on the United States men's national team.
Yes, but in hindsight, I'll kind of tell you why the way it worked out, I think worked in my favor as well. But yes, it's biggest league in the world, a team that was always competing very well. Doing my research, a team that seemed like that matched my playing style, a good group mentality as well. So I was very excited. I had a little bit of an unfortunate timing issue where I'd kind of picked up a little bit of an injury at the end of the season, And so we had to push my time to go over there a little bit late. At that time, they had signed back a guy named Joe Cole, who is a legend of the club, and he happened to play my position. So the timing just didn't work out. But that's leading up to a World Cup year, and had a very strong January camp with the national team. Was obviously consistently playing with Sporting at that time, which just kind of fed right into World Cup timing. If I would have made that move, you never know if you immediately click with the team, if you're immediately playing. If I'm not getting minutes with my club team, a lot of times you don't get called into the national team.
Right.
So
because they're thinking, well, he wasn't good enough to play for them. He's not good enough to play for us.
that and they just your form is so much determined on what you're doing with your club team.
Yeah.
And so who knows? Hindsight, I think timing wise, it actually helped with my career.
Yeah. Side note, did you like Ted Lasso?
I did.
Did the series?
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
It took me a while to even give it a go. When shows do sports, it's a lot of times it's tough for someone who's involved with that sport to watch. It's like, oh, that's cringy. That's tough to watch. But Ted Lasso they didn't try to really like show soccer, but it was so much about.
It was so much more.
It was so much more.
So much more.
But I loved it. I binged it hard once I gave it a go. Yeah.
It was a perfect time.
And
Came out at a perfect time.
Oh,
yeah,
perfect.
right through COVID. I was like, timing
100%.
couldn't have been better.
And they're coming out with new season.
They're coming
right?
out with a new
Yeah.
series now. I think he's going to coach a women's team now.
right?
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
which is amazing.
It's going to be classic. Just
So
a
good.
classic. Okay, so when did you get the call? How did you get notified that we want you for the United States men, try out for the United States men's team?
Yeah, so I was pretty consistently being called in the year or two leading up to the World Cup. So I knew that I was at least on the radar. And then the way the World Cup works is a month before the tournament, they host a camp. And so there's, I think what is the roster size of World Cup? Let's just call it 23.
Yeah, right. It's not many, but the tryouts you've got.
So there's probably 35 guys in this camp at least. And I mean, it's a brutal month long. They're seeing if you've got what it takes. They're crushing you. It's
plus the other players
fitness test,
trying to
fitness
take your
test.
position.
Yeah, so it's like can we come together as a group, but it's super competitive as well. And it wasn't until very late in that camp that they kind of start the trimming process.
Yeah, they do the cuts.
And there was one training session where you can see the coach bringing a couple guys aside as you're walking into the locker room. And then he comes in, he goes, guys, this is the group that's going to Brazil.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you knew at that last two cuts, right?
It was just very, yeah, it was
Were you
super
still
late.
worried? I mean, or just do you worry? I just in a back of your mind going,
of
boy, I
course.
hope he doesn't call me over.
Of course, yeah. No, you see that happening, and then you quickly find out that when that happens, it's not a good thing.
Right. And the amazing part, you're there with Beasler.
Oh gosh,
I mean,
yeah.
with Matt
so,
Beasler.
so
I mean, one of your teammates for
who is
Sporting KC.
Who's about to be a sporting legend this weekend.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
going to be a sporting legend this weekend.
No, that aspect of it, and so not only I'm with Matt Beasler, but I'm with my college roommate as well.
Oh,
Omar Gonzalez. So I had this awesome little
group,
tight knit group that we're just doing it all together.
Yeah.
But the bees thing is so cool. Bees and I had this amazing where it's just like we're hitting all these little tick points almost at the exact same time, and we're just like going throughout our career and hitting these amazing milestones together.
Yeah. And when you got here, how'd you hook up with Bees? I know you went roast single and you lived together for a while, right?
We did.
Were you ever in the parents' basement, or were you already in an apartment? Were you in Beasler's parents' basement? or what?
So the way that happened is, so I actually I met the team. I never came to Kansas City after the draft. I was, like I said, finishing up that class.
Mm-hmm.
I went straight from that class to Bradenton, Florida for preseason. So my first interaction with bees was in Bradenton, along with probably like 5 or 6 other rookies. And as preseason goes, rookies are getting cut. And we ended up being the final 2 guys, and we were the only 2 rookies that year. Mm-hmm. So naturally, we just kind of, we created this bond. We got super close. We're doing all the rookie duties together. And then when it was time to come back to KC to start the season, again, naturally, we're like, all right, well, let's get a place together.
Yeah, right.
Save some,
and he's
save some
from
money.
Here. Of all things, you know.
He's a Kansas City native. So we're talking about getting a place. At that point, he's just staying at his parents' house. I was at the extended stay on the plaza. And I mentioned that Abe Thompson guy, and he had an apartment with an extra bedroom out on Vivian Road, North KC.
Oh, North KC, yeah.
He's like, hey, man, I pay $125 a month. I was like, that sounds pretty good. So I moved in with him initially, kind of waiting for Bees to
get off his butt,
be ready to get an apartment. So, long story short, Bees was like, he gave me a call one day. He's like, hey, man, I think I'm just gonna stay at my parents this whole first year. He's like, but you're welcome to come live with us. My parents are, they're more than happy to host.
Super cool parents.
Unbelievable. And we can save some money. We can mow the lawn to pay rent. And
remember, folks, I just want to tell you, these guys aren't getting $5.6 million bonuses to sign a contract.
$32,000 a year was my first contract.
There it is. Yeah. You hear that? $32,000 a year.
Yeah. So, I was like, that anything to save a couple bucks. That sounds amazing. So I Beasler was actually the one who moved down to the basement, and this wasn't any ordinary basement. This thing
I know.
Kitchen, ping pong table.
It was your own place.
Yeah, and I actually moved into his younger brother's room, who had just gone to college.
Yeah,
Nick Beasler.
Yeah, so, Nick. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. Okay. So then you eventually get out of the basement. You end up in an apartment, right?
Yep.
Together, and so before we move on, we'll start talking about Brazil and the World Cup. The dog.
Yes.
What about the dog?
Yeah. So eventually, when Bees and I had moved out of the parents' basement, we were living on the plaza, our first apartment, and we're 22 years old. We're living our dream, but we're getting home from training at 12:30 in the afternoon, and we've just got the rest of the day
too much time
wide open. So we're like, it'd be pretty cool to have a dog in the bachelor pad. And so we're online looking at the shelters, and we're like, oh man, this shelter just got a new litter. So we're like, let's just go look at them. And so we drive out to Wayside Waifs, and we're playing with this.
Yeah, they bring
amazing
puppy, right?
litter of
the whole litter.
The whole litter of like 8 little lab mixes. And so we're like, oh man, yeah, let's just do it. Why not? But then we look at each other, we're like, well, we don't have the best job security. Neither of our contracts are guaranteed.
What's going to happen?
We could be traded in an instant or cut or whatever.
Right.
So who gets the dog? And so we just kind of, without even saying anything, he just kind of walks over and grabs another dog, and he takes the second one. But we're driving home. I've got 2 dogs on my lap. He's driving, and it's just quiet. We're like, what did we just do? But we happened to drive. We didn't drive to the apartment. We drive to his parents' house, just to kind of be like, hey, look what we did.
Oh yeah. And they're looking right away, going, they're going to end up in our house eventually.
His mom walks out and just goes, oh, God. Turns around and she goes, I'm going to be looking after these dogs when you guys are on the road. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But Diane fell in love with Bocce and Gipper.
Bocce and Gipper.
Bocce was my pup. Gipper was Matt's. Naturally, he's a Notre Dame kid. But
yeah, that's right. And yours was Bocce ball?
Bocce, well, I actually took an Italian class in college.
Right.
And Bocce means kisses in Italian.
Okay.
She was a kisser.
There you go.
So,
God, that's cool. Yeah. That's okay. So they're the dogs. So now you guys are on your way. You're playing for Sporting KC. Yep. Everything's going good. You make the national team and the whole thing. And then that trip and the Brazil trip, and I know there was some stuff leading up to it. You had the stoppage time equalizer versus Panama in the World Cup qualifier. And I know that ended up getting Mexico in there. And they ended up calling you
San Zusi,
which is Saint Zeus in Spanish. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a wild time. We had already qualified for the World Cup.
Right, you're already in.
This was our final game of the group play, and I wasn't really thinking about Mexico at all. You know, I'm thinking, hey, I need to do whatever I can to make the team. We got to play
as well as we can.
Yeah, and at that point, they hadn't named the final team yet. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to play as hard as I can to the final whistle, not knowing that goal caused Mexico to be qualified for the World Cup. And oh man, the in checking Twitter for the next 3 weeks was insane. I didn't realize the implications that had just occurred.
Yeah. In fact, that's one of the things you think about. Then you'll end up going to Brazil for the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And you talk about, a soccer crazy nation. So you go to Brazil. Bees told me one story, but tell me what you remember about Brazil being there, and the home country is one of the greatest soccer powers in the world. What was that like? And this is about what we're about to experience a little of this.
Yeah, it was, if you could choose a World Cup to go to, man, Brazil is probably up there on that list. I always tell this story because it's so fascinating to me. So our host city, we were set up in Sao Paulo, Brazil, mm-hmm. which is a massive city. I mean, gigantic. And it's got the World Cup buzz. You see Brazilians, you see people from all over the world. And they're happy. They're dressed in their team's colors, their country's colors. And it's just this buzz about the city. But when Brazil was playing, this gigantic city was a ghost town. I mean, you could hear a pin drop in the city, go outside, not see a single person. But when Brazil scored a goal, the city blew its roof, and it was like nothing I'd ever heard. So to look out your window, see nothing, but then this eruption of sound, it was one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, Beast told me on the morning Brazil was going to play in the afternoon, I think that day, he had to go get an MRI.
Oh,
and
that's right.
He had to go from the hotel to the hospital, which was maybe 2 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
He said it took him 4 hours.
Right.
To get to. Just think about that for a minute. Okay, he could have tried to dodge and walk. He said you couldn't even walk.
Yeah.
And all the streets are closed because people are on the streets.
Yeah.
They had to go all these back ways with the taxi.
Leading up to the games, it was a hustle and bustle.
So then he goes in, he gets his MRI. He comes out, Brazil's playing. Mm-hmm. He says it took him 2 minutes to get home.
Yeah.
Back to the hotel.
Wild.
Nobody was out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's really incredible.
It was just a surreal moment.
Right. Yeah. So what do we expect here? What is,
Yeah, I'm so excited.
What should we expect?
It's one of these tournaments where everyone, doesn't matter where you're from, you've got this influx of nations coming in to see their teams, and everyone's just happy and friendly, and it's one of those things where you hear about wars ending, taking a pause,
a time out, right? Exactly,
because of this moment, and that's the World Cup. And what I'm excited about is how Kansas City is a host town. People here love hosting, and that environment is going to make people just fall in love with the city even more. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do such a great job at it. Everyone who comes here is like, wow, I didn't realize Kansas City was so great. and it's the people. It's the people. It's the people. That's to me. That's what it's all about. And we're gonna crush this hosting of the World Cup. And people are going to be talking about Kansas City for a long time.
For a long time. Yeah. What about, if we could get, I know the Chiefs have gone to Germany a couple of times to play football. Yeah. If we get Germany here, like a team like that, like a France or a Germany or Spain, Italy, a big name. Yeah. I think LA will get Brazil, and I think, maybe New York's going to end up getting France or England or somebody of that nature.
Well, we'll have a big team for sure. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Right. They'll train here. They'll play their game. They'll come back. But it's just there's too many of those big time teams to not host one of those games for sure.
And I know
it's going to be wild.
It'll be wild. I know you're ambassador for NBKC, which is awesome, for the World Cup. Well, what will your duties be?
Yeah, so I'll do. Really, we've already started working together. It's not just going to be during the World Cup, but the whole lead up. I'll do some speaking engagements for some of their customers, their employees. I'm hosting a foosball tournament. I'll be kind of like the commissioner of that tournament, which I'm pretty stoked on. It'll be fun. Just some various engagements, and then stuff that we haven't really even thought of yet. But they've been so great to work with because I've had ideas about some of the things that I want to do leading up to the World Cup, and not only to put KC on the map, but also there's so many opportunities to do just good in the community. And they were like, yeah, we're all ears. So let's do it.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool to have them be like, yeah, we're in on that. So
yeah,
they're a great bank.
Yeah, I told you, my daughter works there. Yeah. She sets up the corporate challenge every year for NBKC. So get her on. Crack the whip on my daughter.
I've realized how serious they take their corporate challenge.
And she really takes it serious. Yeah. So,
there's some athletes. There are some absolute athletes at that bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Talked about your career. We talked about the World Cup a little bit. We're going to talk about Kansas City in a moment. But I got to ask you about post-career or even during some of your career. Sure. What are you doing now?
I'm doing a few things.
I know you work at a bike shop, right?
I do work at a bike shop. I'm kind of like an apprentice mechanic. I'm learning a bunch. I work there 2 days a week down at Cycle City in the River Market.
There you go. Give them a shout out. Absolutely, yeah. Because I know you're still very active, physically active, okay? And so is this eventually maybe open your own bike shop, or is it just something you wanted to learn because you do a lot of biking?
Yeah, it's more of the latter. When I was done playing, like you said, I just like being active. I'm very much involved in outdoorsy activities. The year was it just last year? Yeah, just last year. I did a 100-mile mountain biking trip out in Utah, the White Rim Trail, and it's kind of a brutal undertaking, but I had started getting into biking a little bit. My brother's like, "Hey, a group of us are doing this trip."
Sure, how tough can it be?
Yeah, right. And so I joined, and it was amazing. I loved everything about it, but I very quickly realized, if something goes wrong with my bike while I'm out in the middle of nowhere, I don't know anything. I wouldn't know how to fix it. So
I can't fix a flat.
Right.
So
correct.
Yeah, I'm through.
So I was acquaintances with the owner of that shop years and years ago. I bought a bike from him when I got to Kansas City, and I sent him a message. I was like, "Hey, how would you feel about taking on an apprentice?" And he's like, "Let me get back to you. I think we may be able to do that." And they are so knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've interacted with a ton of people in the city, and they're like, that's the shop to go to. You're in good hands. So I was like, oh, awesome. And they were absolutely right. Joe and Aaron down at Cycle City, they're just killer. They've been in the bike industry forever. And I'm learning a ton. I love every single minute I'm in that shop.
Yeah, right. You realize you don't need, you need a lot more than a 12-speed. to do a 100-mile bike trip in Utah. Up and down the side of mountains. You know, they have 3 derailleurs on this bike.
Oh, man. All
crazy.
your gear packed up.
Exactly.
Yep,
okay. Talk to me about, you went to Patagonia. That's my dream. I love to hike. But I've loved to have gone to Patagonia in my younger days. I still do things here in Colorado with their 14ers up there.
Right, big time.
But what was that?
Oh man, that was a trip of a lifetime. It was amazing. So I went down to Torres del Paine Park, and the way that park's set up is you can do it for the people who just kind of want to pop in and out. There's they call it the W loop, and you can kind of hit portion of the whole park. And they've got the lunch set up for you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can see that's not appealing to you a whole lot. Go ahead.
And I was like, yeah. But then they've got the O loop, they call it, and it's I can't remember how long it was, but there are days where you're hiking 20 miles a day.
In the
mountains.
It was
in the mountains. You're summiting a couple of peaks, and carrying all your gear, so your food, your tent, your shelter, everything, you're carrying on your back. So this was I think it was a 7 night, 8 day trek, but it's some of the most stunning views.
It is just incredible. It's an incredible looking place.
Yeah,
so been there just has to be.
And I lucked out with weather, because it can turn on you instantly. The winds can be like hurricane force winds. Got a little bit of that, but for the most part, I lucked out with weather.
Yeah.
But you're coming off that peak that you summit, and it's like just this massive glacier, beautiful, like perfect blue glacier that's coming through the mountains, and oh man, just stunning.
Worth all the pain and effort, right?
Yeah, you fly into Santiago, and then you take a little small prop plane down to a fishing village or a port city. Then you're on a bus for 4 hours. Getting down there is not easy. But it's worth every second.
Worth every minute of it. Okay.
And the people in southern Chile are to die for. They've got next to nothing, and they're the happiest
and they'll
people.
give you everything.
Oh yeah,
give
exactly.
you anything you want.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, Cuba reopened. You decide, I'm going to Cuba.
Yeah.
And you went with you didn't know anybody. You didn't have any accommodations. You just went to Cuba. I mean, you just said, I'm going to Cuba.
Yeah.
So
so that was, I can't take credit for planning that trip. My cousin and brother were actually the spearheads for that trip. But I had a buddy in Kansas City who had just gotten back as I was planning. So he's like, 100% do it, and do it this way. He's like, yeah, check out Havana. It's cool to
Havana.
see. It's cool to see the cars stuck in the
1954
50s
Pontiac.
Yeah. But then he's like, then get out of Havana. So that's what we did, and we were staying at, they call them casitas, but you're staying with the citizens. They open up a bed for you.
Right. The original B&B.
Yeah,
right.
And they walk down to the ocean, catch a fish, bring it back, cook it for dinner. It was amazing, and the countryside of Cuba is beautiful. We're on horseback going through tobacco fields, guy rolls a cigar for you right there, and it's like, oh, it was incredible. But again, it's like the people make it, man. It's on these trips, they really make it a special moment.
And you like the physicality of things. You you're not staying in the Hilton.
No, I like just making myself uncomfortable a bit.
Living off the land, being uncomfortable, all that pressure.
Yeah,
you always built your
sure.
whole career. Yeah. There's always that pressure. There's always a pressure of where am I staying tonight?
Totally.
Whatever it is, or can I make it to that top of that peak, which you probably can. Just this is an aside before we talk a little bit about Kansas City here. Do you have a climbing goal? Do you want to do Nepal? Do you want to go think about Everest or K2?
No, not really. Everest thing has, I mean, yes, it's like, that's the pinnacle, right? But
it's too commercialized.
It has become that. Yeah.
Way too commercialized.
I don't think I can afford climbing Everest. It's like,
almost $100,000.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
And they don't guarantee you'll summit.
I know, right?
Wow. And they might leave you on the side of the mountain.
Yeah, there's plenty other things to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to get into stuff like that.
Yeah. Have you ever hiked on a Colorado 14?
I haven't done a 14er yet.
Oh my gosh.
No, I know.
Get
Crazy.
out. Got to get out there.
Yeah, we hit the last little trek we did last week with my dad and brother. We were hovering around 12.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
14ers are cool. I've done a few of those. So it really does.
That is on my list.
Get your attention. A little bit, of course, being in Patagonia. I don't think it's that, it'll be that big a deal for you. Let's talk about Kansas City. You've been all over the world, obviously, through soccer and through your travels or whatever, and here you are in KC. Well, you could live anywhere. You could have gone back to Florida. You could have gone back to College Park. You moved to Utah or Colorado or whatever with all the things you love to do. Why KC?
Yeah, well, admittedly, as in my playing days, first maybe 5 years, I was like, when I'm done playing, I think I'll probably move on from Kansas City. But it grows on you. It does big time in a big way. You realize how special it is. It's an incredible place to raise a family if and when I get to that point. And then I go back to the people. You make all these connections. You start your roots start growing, and it becomes difficult to leave as well. And the grass is not always greener, man. I've met and played with and hung out with so many people who have moved on from Kansas City, and they're like, what are we doing? That place that place was special. So I've kind of made the decision that this is home base. I would like to maybe, if I'm lucky enough to have a second spot in the mountains, just because I love it out there so much. But again, this is my decision to make this my home base is pretty much done.
Yeah. And bees will never let you leave anyway. Because you're about the only friend he has.
That's not true.
I know. Yeah. But his mom and dad won't let you leave either. So
gosh,
really
I can't wait to see them this weekend.
Yeah.
But no, Bees and I have, when he moved on from sporting and went to Austin and then came back to Kansas City and gosh, he's got 3 kids now. He's got his club he's running. He was working Chicken Pickle for a while, but we kind of we kind of realized that, hey, we're not seeing each other that often anymore. So we started this a little bit of a weekly trend where we'd get out and play a tennis match, and it forced us to put something on the schedule and then see each other. We'd always, either before or after, just catch up and which
no pickleball.
Not really, no.
Okay.
I've moved on from pickleball, tennis, but also paddle. We got to talk about paddle.
Oh, paddleball. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's a lost art. That was.
Yes, that's originated in Mexico, but has made this huge resurgence, and it's the fastest growing
league.
Oh, big time!
Yeah, it's huge.
Big
league,
time, huge in Europe, Central South America, and we're starting to catch on. And it's growing really fast.
That's cool. Can you beat Bees in all these events?
I haven't taken him.
Remember, we've already interviewed Bees. He will never be able to refute you.
Right. So I got the last word.
You get the last word. Yeah.
No, we have very, very good matches, and he's been retired longer than I have been, so he's been playing tennis a whole lot more. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he took private lessons. So.
Oh yeah, he's pretty competitive.
No, gosh, the two of us, it's dangerous how competitive we are.
Hey, listen, Graham, thanks so much for taking some time.
Oh, my gosh.
I know how busy you are this year leading up to the World Cup and everything you're doing for NBKC and being their ambassador for the World Cup. But we're glad you're here, glad you stayed, and it's just awesome. So
thank you so much. This was a blast. I had so much fun.
Good. That's great.
There's Just Something About Kansas City is a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the mission of documenting the stories that have built our city to inspire and educate generations to come. Our work is being made possible by the generous support of local partners like you. You can help us share these stories by becoming a sponsor today. Visit somethingaboutKC.org to learn more.